Hello everyone, this is Highlander from MTG Cardsmith doing another custom Magic the Gathering card review. Taking a break from drafting the new set. And boy have I drafted it a lot. Anyway, we got a card here by Ashdust, our friend Ashdust. And this is a rug card called Haruni, Prideful Patron. This is another legendary creature, Cat Beast Elemental. Are cats not beasts? I guess not. I guess not in the world of Magic. This guy's kind of cool looking. He's got like a weird little bone-plated helmet thing going on there. Sort of a dinosaur tail. Interesting. All right, so this is a 3/4 for 5. So the stats are pretty bad there, the base stats. But that doesn't mean the creature's bad. It just means it has to have a good ability. So let's see what we got. This is a mythic, so it better be good. Other creatures you control enter the battlefield with your choice of a flying counter, a trample counter, or a hexproof counter. Hexproof, no! Anyway, pay 2 and remove 2 counters from among creatures you control. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may cast those cards this turn. Okay, so let's see what we got here. We got a 3. So this guy himself doesn't do, I mean, his body isn't that great for what he does. So he's not really probably going to be rumbling too much. But he gives your other creatures counters. Most likely flying is going to be the most common counter, I think, that you're going to be putting on creatures, but there's also hexproof. No. I'll get back to that in a minute. Yeah, see, I've seen designs like this a lot where you sort of get a choice of ability based on color, right? You've got of course, yours are maybe not in the right order, but it would be like hexproof, flying, trample. I guess red would be your trample. So I see this kind of a thing a lot. The issue with this kind of an effect is it's difficult to make the counters, like the keyword counters, evenly matched. As in, like, usually they're like, okay, oh God, how did that happen? How did that happen? Somehow, okay, I gotta figure out how this works. Hold on, please. Everybody, hold on for a second. Okay, everything's fine. I figured it out, kind of, except I switched to a highlighter. Anyway, so what was I saying? Oh yeah. So these counters are clearly not even, as in, like, you're not making a really difficult choice here when you're choosing your keyword counter. I would say, like, most of the time you're going to be picking flying on your creatures, or maybe hexproof. But I'll get to hexproof in a minute here. Like, the fact that trample's on here, trample is just a worse flying, essentially. I mean, kind of, like, okay, yes, there are some situations where you play a flyer and you can give that flyer trample, and then that flyer can get past other flyers, right? So that's cool and all. But, like, in general, giving your creatures flying is just better than giving them trample. So this is sort of like a difficult thing to balance, to make this an interesting decision. That's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, it's not the end of the world if the counters aren't balanced, right? But the decision is not that interesting, and that makes the design a little bit less, interesting. So let's talk about hexproof for a second. I've talked about this talked about this in some of my other videos. Hexproof, I don't think hexproof should be a thing anymore. Wizards has basically stopped printing hexproof, more or less. I mean, again, I don't follow the Commander product that they release, but at least in the core sets that they release, they do not include hexproof anymore as a keyword, because hexproof is really unfun. It's very unfun because it basically removes interaction. It's not fun to watch your opponent have something that you can't deal with, and basically like the feeling of losing to something that you have no hope of dealing with is really, really unfun, right? And there's a lot of creatures that if you give them hexproof, they are extremely unfun to play against, right? So hexproof has in general been replaced by ward by Wizards, which is a very, very good mechanic in my opinion. Ward is awesome because it makes it so that your creature is more likely to stick around. It doesn't like perfectly protect it, but it basically means that your creature is more likely to stick around. And if they do deal with your creature, they have to essentially like eat a lot of their turn to do so. So like if they have a 3 mana removal spell and you have a ward 2, they have to pay 5 mana to kill your creature, right? And that's a lot of mana that they could have used to do other things. So the other cool thing about ward is that you can actually be really creative with the costs for ward. So for example, Wizards has done pay life, they've done discard a card, and who knows? There's plenty of other options. Sacrifice creature. You could do all kinds of crazy things with ward, and I think that is a really cool mechanic. Hexproof is not a cool mechanic. Okay, Shroud was like more fair, but they got rid of Shroud because it confused new players too much, right? Because like they'd have a creature with a Shroud, and then they would like try to put an aura or an equipment on it, and the opponent would be like, you can't do that. You can't target it with your own stuff. And it was kind of feel bad there, right? So anyway, I staunchly believe that hexproof should be wiped off the face of the earth. It's a bad mechanic. I don't recommend you put them on cards. Put it on cards. That being said, you can't really do a ward counter. I guess you kind of could. I've done ward counters before, but it's like a ward 1 counter. Each counter is a ward 1. But anyway, the point is, I think you should find a different keyword here to use. So is there a combination of keywords here that are like sort of equally sort of useful in various situations that doesn't include hexproof? So blue keywords, mostly just flying. Red, there's First Strike, there's Menace, there's Haste. That would be a good counter. Yeah, so Haste would be a really nice counter, actually, over Trample. So you could have, let's see, Flying, Haste, and then you'd need a green one, which, I mean, green's mostly... Oh, and Reach. But Reach... No. Reach sucks, because... See, Flying is really kind of the annoying thing here. Is there another blue keyword that I'm forgetting? Hold on. Let's look it up. Let's do our due diligence here. Okay. MTG blue keywords. Blue. Keywords. Where are you at? Mechanics. Get these ads out of my face. Oh, come on. Come on. Keywords. Here we go. Flash, flying, hexproof. Yeah, that's a tough one. Blue doesn't have a lot of keywords actually that are useful there. So maybe what you could do is like flying, haste, or a +1/+1 counter. Maybe something like that could be useful. And at least, I mean, flying is really the annoying one here, but. Well, I mean, assuming we're getting rid of hexproof, because it makes all the other ones like a lot worse. Flying is just really good ability. But I think if you do flying, haste, and a +1/+1 counter, at least there's like various situations where those are more useful. Trample here is like really, like you're going to use that like 5% of the time. Okay, so enough about this whole thing. Let's take a look at this whole thing. So pay 2, remove 2 counters from among creatures you control. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may cast those cards this turn. Okay, that's fine. Certainly fine. Good in like a counters deck, of course. You can trade 2 counters for 2 cards. You know, in general, it's not always 2 cards. Sometimes you'll flip. Well, okay, first of all, let's talk about this for a second. It says you may cast those cards this turn. I think that the red like exile and being able to play cards, I think that works a lot better when you can play those cards, because then you can actually play lands. Right now, like let's say you remove 2 counters from your creatures, which, I mean, these counters are fairly valuable, right? You get like flying counters, +1/+1 counters that you've got from like other effects, things like that, right? So those are like pretty valuable. So removing 2 of them and then like flipping 2 lands off the top is really feel bad, because it's like, I mean, it would be feel bad even if you could play the land, because like, you know, at least you get to play 1 land, but you don't get to like cast another spell. But imagine you can't play any lands. You just remove 2 counters for literally nothing, for getting 2 lands off the top of your deck, I guess. So anyway, I think this is a cool effect. You know, using your counters for cards, I think is nice. Overall, it's a pretty good trade. I do think that this should say you may play those cards this turn. That way, you know. That way, like you're guaranteed to at least get 1 card out of the deal, unless you get too expensive things or whatever. But you get what I'm saying. So overall, this is a fine like counter lord. I do highly suggest you rethink the counters that are the options here, and I do think you should change this to play. There's also some formatting issues here I have to get out of the way. So keywords are not capitalized. So flying, trample, and hexproof should not be capitalized here. They're only capitalized when they're the first word of a clause. All right. Anything else? 2, remove 2 counters from among creatures you control. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may cast those cards. Okay, other than that, the only other issue is this gap here, this like empty space, which makes the card look a little amateur. So what you could do, you could potentially just add an extra line at the top, or, you know, it's even better, add some flavor text, man. Flavor text always helps. Flavor text always helps. Just put a nice little meow in here, you know. Anyway, so what grade do we give Haruni? I think, given its current state, we got some formatting issues. I don't like the hexproof. I don't think the counters are well balanced, and the fact that you can't play the cards, that's sort of 4 strikes against it. So I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. But I think with a couple with those changes, I think this card could probably be like an 8 out of 10. So I think you fix those issues, and the card will be great. It's a cool idea. Just needs to be sort of fixed up a little bit, in my opinion. So anyway, that's my review of Haruni, Prideful Patron. I'll see you guys next time.